Hey traders, this is Taylor Horton, and this is the free nightly video for November 2nd. So, welcome to November, and the slow grind continues here. So obviously October, late September, early October started off a little bit hairy here, but the market has just so quickly fixed everything. Structure, momentum, trend, everything here. Now granted, we're extended. And you could have said the same thing 10 days ago. So, in the rule book that's going to serve you well in 9 out of 10 markets, this is not the spot to get long. And I don't think you ignore the potential that eventually at some point we're going to come back down to earth. But in a market like this, if you sit back and wait for the pullback, you might be waiting for quite a while. So, granted, we're extended. I still think you're looking for the right combinations of trend, structure, and momentum to pick your spots wisely. So, a few spots here we'll take a look at. And one is actually IWM, which up to this point has been, just a nasty, nasty chop fest. So, in my mastery, we tried to short this thing 2 or 3 times. We ended up break even every time. And the major thing here, as to the choppiness, is you're caught in a weekly squeeze, and you've been weekly squeezing since end of April here. Now, as a visual kind of example, look at the weekly squeeze here in Netflix, and very similar to the small caps. Such a long, kind of drawn out, back and forth chop fest here, and inside that chop fest, you're going to get your good looking structure to your daily charts, and you can still catch moves there, but they tend to be a little bit short lived, where generally speaking, you're going to have your ups and your downs, you're going to have your ebbs and flows, but you're pretty much range bound from a big picture perspective. It's moves like this, 560 to 660. It's moves like that that tend to take place once you can break out of that weekly consolidation. So there's a lot of power to a weekly squeeze. And if we kind of take the rule of thumb with a squeeze, once a squeeze fires, there's the potential for 5, 6, maybe 8 bars of momentum. So looking at Netflix here, the weekly squeeze fires, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 bars of momentum here. So you get your initial breakout, you get your first flush, but the key here for Netflix was previous resistance turned into support. So you finally break this big weekly range, but your first flush there doesn't take you back into that range. And then you throw in a great looking daily squeeze after that pullback. It's pretty much off to the races. But kind of look at this like a rogue elephant, if that makes sense. Where Netflix here, seemingly for almost a year, just kind of trading like it just couldn't get out of its own way, kind of like it's pinned down here. Once you finally get the breakout, it's kind of like that rogue elephant that realizes it's no longer tied down. It's kind of got the freedom here to wreak havoc. And to the upside, Netflix has wreaked havoc. So to take that same mindset back to IWM, big weekly squeeze here, but if you note the histogram, finally starting to see a shift in positive momentum. So I'm looking for 2 potential trades here. Now the easier trade is going to be very much like Netflix, where you get your initial break, a legitimate breakout too. You get your initial break here out of the weekly consolidation. So for conversation's sake, that takes you into 240. Then I'm waiting for that next dip, and so long as that next dip doesn't take the stock back into that range under 230, I'm looking to buy that dip with the mindset that finally the small caps have broken free here, and they got the green light to finally trend again. Another example of this is Tesla. Real quick, I gotta show you this one, everybody's favorite. Chop fest, chop fest, chop fest, chop fest. Shift of momentum. You finally get your breakout. In a pretty ridiculous fashion, off to the races. So, in the event that IWM just continues to grind here and makes the breakout, I would be looking for the first dip, and then I would be looking for an entry to catch the next swing towards 245, 250. But that's all contingent on that dip not bringing the stock back into the chop fest. Now, the other alternative here, which I also think offers a good entry as that weekly squeeze starts to shift momentum towards the upside, is in the event we come up here again get rejected, and then come back into the 8 or the 21 EMA, I would want to buy that dip. I would use that dip after the rejection as an opportunity to build my position here to try to ultimately catch the break of that weekly squeeze. Now, one could argue, if we get rejected here and we come right back in, isn't it just going to be a chop fest again? And while potentially that might be the case, as your daily squeeze is firing long, that's one reason to look for a pullback. But I do think the shift in momentum here to the weekly chart is something to take note of. So I'm either looking for a breakout here on IWM and then looking to get long on the next pullback, or in the event we get rejected here this week, I would look to take an entry down towards the daily 8 or the daily 21 EMA. And most likely here, keep it simple. At the money, put credit spread, possibly work something like a debit spread. Looking for a push into 250. But I think a good structure, and I think we've seen several examples here. Netflix, definitely in Tesla, of just how difficult it can be to make headway. Working those entries inside the weekly chop. But man, once that weekly squeeze breaks, it can be a real thing of beauty here. Now, one more I got for you here along the same lines potentially is going to be Lucid, LCID. Let's clean this up. But everything kind of applies here. Same things apply. Weekly consolidation going back as far as March. Shift of momentum to the weekly histogram. So we're starting to build up some energy here. Now you got your big break. I'm waiting for the next dip here, and so long as that dip doesn't take the stock back under 30 bucks and change, I want to buy the dip with the thought process that you've broken free, and it could be time to trend. And it's trended nicely before, in its infancy here. So looking at the daily chart, the 8 EMA, you can see I got an alert working here. It's one of the first targets for a potential entry. I would love a dip closer to the 21. I don't quite think we get it here. Also, keep in mind you do have earnings. Of course, you've got earnings coming up. But that's kind of a theme I'm focusing on right now for my next round of bigger picture swing trades. Very difficult when something is in a weekly chop fest to catch good, lasting momentum inside that range. But once these things break, especially if the weekly squeeze hasn't even fired yet, like Lucid here, you still have that potential 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks of momentum. You got a big gas tank sitting there. So I like Lucid on the pullback. I like IWM either on a rejection back down to the 8, or it's going to break out, go crazy, and then I would take the next dip. And I think you look at a Netflix, you look at Tesla, 2 examples of those. But the reason I'm focusing on this in this market is because the index is extended. The risk that we run here is we start to load the boat on long positions, and then the market reverts back to the 21, and everything's probably going to come down with it. The few things that I think don't come down with it might be things that are making these big-time breakouts. So something like a Netflix as of late completely ignores the selling pressure and the volatility in the market, and I think a big part of that is you're breaking out of a massive range there. So the market's rolling over, volatility is spiking. Netflix has got business to do here. Same thing with Tesla. Market's getting a little bit iffy, but you got a massive breakout here. You got a big time push. So I'll be looking for more of the same here in Lucid and in IWM, and I hope that gives you a few things to take into consideration as you're building your own watch list here tonight. So as always, we appreciate you watching. If you haven't already, make sure you go on ahead and subscribe to our channel, and definitely hit that bell icon. That way, every time we upload these nightly videos, you're going to get a push notification as soon as it's ready. So talk to you in the next one.
What's up, traders? This is Taylor from Simpler Trading. I wanted to thank you for watching our video, and if you liked the video, go on ahead and comment down below, hit that like button, and make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell icon to get a notification anytime we upload our next video. And of course, if you want to watch us trade live in real time with our own money, check us out at simplertrading.com. Until then, trade safe, and I'll catch you in the next video.